Hello and welcome to Video Games and the Blockchain. You're watching Crypto Finder TV. I'm your host, Chris Stead, and we're here to talk about the intersection between video games and the blockchain. Every single week we jump on here, talk about the latest and biggest news stories, chat about some new games that have been announced. We've got plenty of really exciting stuff to talk to you today, led by the mighty Ubisoft, the huge giant Ubisoft. Now, usually I'm joined in the studio by Brody Fogg, who's the games expert here at Find.com, but he is away on holiday, sunning it up somewhere, getting some sun on that pasty white skin, which he desperately needs, vitamin D and all that. And so it's just going to be me here today, but that's okay. We're going to have lots of fun. Usually we have a chat about what games I've been playing during the week with me and Brody, but since he's not here, I'm just going to get straight into it. This week I managed to get a chance to sit down with Nintendo, play about a Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which is the upcoming game on December 7, the brand new release in the series that we know and love. It's kind of the ultimate because it's got all the characters in most of the levels. I think it's got about 71 characters in it. It's all the ones from the previous games plus 8 new ones, or 8 new ones so far that have been announced. And it's also going to have on top of that about 101 stages, the guy was saying when I was there. Look, I played the game for about an hour and a half. It was amazing just how familiar it felt. You know, I played the hell out of the N64 version. That's probably my biggest anchor point with the series. Kirby was my man. Is he a man? I don't know, but Kirby was my character. And I got jumped back in. I was kicking butt. I won the first match straight away. So it felt very organic, very, very Super Smash Brothers-like. Revisiting some of those old stages was really, really, really cool. Like it's real big flashbacks to drunken nights 20 years ago. And the new stages, geez, I don't know about new stages. Some of them, the Splatoon new stage was a bit iffy. Found most of the action seemed to happen on the top tier. If you look at his screenshots of it, there's a top tier, and it kind of goes down like this, down through the stage. I didn't see much action happening down the bottom. It was all on the top. The Zelda stage, based on the new Breath of the Wild game, was kind of up one of the big giant towers there. It kind of disintegrated and fell apart during combat. That kind of got in the way a bit as well. So those two of the new stages that I played didn't really actually jump out at me as being that awesome, especially compared to some of the old classics that I was also trying out at the time. So, but either way, like the gameplay itself is super smooth. The game looked great. There's so many characters. I don't know how you're going to be able to actually go through and master them all. And there's kind of a few extra modes in there that I didn't get able to play. I'm interested in the 8-player mode. That'll be really, really interesting to see how that plays, whether it's just too crazy or whether it's actually fun or not. But either way, it's progressing quite well, looking quite good. That's Ultimate, Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, coming out on the Switch in December. Okay, so we're going to go straight to some of our big news stories for the week in the blockchain gaming world. Our first news story relates to 9 Lives Arena. Now, this is a game that we covered about 3 episodes ago. We first announced it. They've just announced that they've got a Kickstarter coming out. The Kickstarter is going to be on September 11. And we'll talk a little bit more about why this particular Kickstarter is cool. But just in case you missed the information on the game itself, it's been done by Touch Hour. It's like a 1v1 arena fighter, PvP arena fighter, RPG mechanics. Now, what's really interesting about this game, why we've kind of fallen in love with it a bit, is the concept of these 9 lives. So it's all focused on character. And how you level up this character, how you find resources in the world and items in the world and craft new items to upscale your warrior skills. But you've only ever got 9 lives with this particular character that you create. After that, it's permadeath. It disappears. All right. Everything's recorded on the blockchain. It's all been run by Engine Coin, who we've talked about 1,000 times. So it's an Engine Coin powered game. They'll be running the economy with Engine Coin and using the Engine Coin blockchain tech to kind of run this game using the new 1155 ERC token, which we've spoken about on the show before, which is unique to Engine Coin. So what happens with this game is you have to make this judgment call for how far you level up this character and how many times you actually bring them into the arena to fight, because at a certain point you're going to be risking this character forever. And at that point you either want to maybe sell it on, try and get some money out of the character if you've leveled it up and it's a beast, or you might want to just like preserve it in the histories of annals of time and see if you can get called back for some grudge match in 10 years like Conor McGregor style or something like that. That's kind of how this game's going to roll. Like I said, the Kickstarter, and this is really interesting because they're giving away to those who, well, other than the fact that it's not an ICO, it's a Kickstarter, so it's a traditional, kind of traditional route of crowdfunding. It's kind of funny to say traditional crowdfunding, but yeah, how you would traditionally crowdfund a game is taking the Kickstarter, not an ICO or an IIO, an initial item offering. And on top of that, it's been released on PC, Xbox and PlayStation 4, so it is a very traditional game experience. We've got some footage to show you in a little bit so you can see just how kind of polished and AAA this game is looking. We're really excited by the way it's looking and the way it's playing. But in this Kickstarter, those who initially invest in the game will be getting pretty rare items and pretty rare kind of feature sets for their warriors. When a game like this, which is based on the blockchain, where there is provable rarity and there is an economy where you can own your in-game items and trade them and sell them, those particular rare items could be worth a lot down the track if this game takes off. Now, we've seen that these games are taking off. Gods Unchained was one we spoke about a couple of weeks ago, has a very similar kind of in-game ownership and trading philosophy, and that's going really, really well and breaking some transaction records. And I think what it just did, it had the second highest selling card in history. At 67,000 US, someone paid for one of the cards in Gods Unchanged, only beaten by one card from Magic the Gathering. So there is an appetite for this type of thing. So if you want to get in on that, then you should act quickly if you want to get one of those items. Okay, so like I said, we're going to show you a little bit of footage here from the game just so you can see it. This is similar footage to what we showed a couple of weeks ago, in case you might have see it's a bit familiar, but still it's worth another look. Take a look at this. There we go, that's 9 Lives Arena by Touchouts, looking pretty good. Okay, on to news story number 2. We've got a new game to announce for you. It's called Decimated. Now this is it's an online survival sci-fi game by these guys called Fracture Labs. It's been built on Unreal Engine 4, it's coming to the PC. Now I'm going to preface everything we're about to say with saying that this game looks really early to me, even a bit pie in the sky, but there's some genuine talent behind the game, and it's looking, the idea they've come up with is pretty cool. So what we do know is that when you play this game, you'll be able to earn a cryptocurrency called DIO. I don't know how you're going to earn that, whether that's kind of like you letting your computational power in the background to do a little bit of mining, or whether that's actually through the in-game actions and selling of items, because it's all blockchain enabled. So as we know, we love blockchain because you get to own your in-game items and sell them on however you shall please. Now, there's scavenging, there's a lot of created content in this game, but what we're finding to be really cool about this particular game, what has really attracted my attention is you've got this interesting dynamic with these two different factions. So you have the human survivors and you've got these cyborg cops, right? Now, one of the kind of, I guess, endpoints of this game, or perhaps one of the goals of this game, is if you play by the rules, you can get whitelisted and become one of the cyborg cops. And if you move from this human survivor, you all start as a human survivor, if you move from that point to a cyborg cop point, you then have the ability to patrol and control bits of the air, bits of the world, and police it, right? So that means if you can choose to either play by the rules and become a cop, or be a bit of a rebel and play on the side. But if you're a bit of a rebel, the developer has spoken about how you can be caught with someone else's in-game item, because it's all blockchain tracked. So you can get caught with someone else's in-game item by one of the cops and have it confiscated off you, right? So this is particularly interesting. I haven't seen anything like this in a game before. So, because one part of the game is to have this kind of co-op experience with friends where you go out and you scavenge for resources and you build a giant base and you build a fort, you try and defend off other players who might come and attack you and this type of thing, and try and build this space in the world. But at the same time, you've got to use this token, this DIO token, to kind of repair things that get damaged, buy new parts, buy new like weapons and other gear that might be able to improve your combat situation. But then it sounds to me like these other players in the world can come and fight you and kill you and take that stuff off you. So there's obviously some sort of smart contract thing here where if you own an item because you went and bought it from the store and you own this killer gun, and then Joe Blow comes over the horizon, shoots you in the head and nicks off with it, then that ownership of that either somehow transfers to the other character in that gameplay moment. But then if a cop comes along and spots this guy with this gun and he knows, wait a second, that's not your gun, that's Goody Two-Shoes gun over there, we like that guy, I'm going to confiscate that gun off you and give it back to him. How that dynamic's going to play out in a real-time online environment is quite fascinating, really. And I'm very interested to learn a bit more about how it's going to play out. We're going to try and catch up with the developer and have a chat in an upcoming episode of the show. Now, on top of that, I am a bit worried about the idea of having to pay some tokens to repair damaged goods, damaged guns, damaged base parts, perhaps damaged vehicles. I'm a bit worried about that concept. I'm a bit worried about also having to buy these things in the outset rather than earning them in game. There's just a bit of a question mark there. It's something that could scare off some of the hardcore gamers if they don't get that balance right, if it starts to feel like things are degrading too quickly and you feel like you're constantly having to chip in money to repair guns, because that's going to be controlled by the game. It's not going to be controlled by kind of like the way you operate in the game. They'll be able to kind of, I guess, imbalance that if they want to get a bit more coin out of it. So I'm a bit nervous about that. You know, like let's imagine a Zelda experience where your weapon breaks every 5 seconds and you're constantly having to go deal with that and spend money to do it. Will not work. So I wanted to learn more about that. That's definitely a question I'll be asking the guys when I catch up with them on the show. Working in the game's favour is Ken Thane. Now he's the narrative director for this game. You might not have heard his name before, but he spent 11 years at BioWare. And BioWare are well renowned for their great storytelling. So if this guy used to work with BioWare doing their stories and now he's working on the story for this one, that stands in good stead for this game. His most recent story that he did was the Star Wars Battlefront 2 over at EA. So he's been around, obviously, he's got a bit of experience. The other interesting thing about this is the developer, Fracture Labs, is based out of Malta. Malta, the country, just keeps popping up on this show. There seems to be a heap of stuff going down. They've obviously got some really good business incentives over there. Maybe it's a bit of a tax haven for guys working in the blockchain or gaming space. But they joined Chili's, who have talked about a lot, the most funded video game blockchain startup ever at US $65 million. And also Binance, the mighty exchange, has just opened their headquarters in Malta. I think that's it at the moment, but yeah, we've got more coming now. We've got the decimated creators there. I think a few more are going to turn up there, and they're obviously working a bit together as well because they're all in a pretty close proximity. Malta is not a massive joint. Anyway, like I said, we've got a bit of footage here for you to show you. Well, it's not footage of the game. There's a couple of screenshots in here you're going to see, but it is a bit of a chat with the developer taken by another YouTube outlet, and you can have a look here and see what he had to say to those guys.
Tell us a little bit about Decimated.
So Decimated is an online survival game for PC where players can play with their friends and earn cryptocurrency while they're doing so.
Awesome, man. That sounds cool.
Yeah, so it's kind of like two factions of players. There's human survivors and cyborg cops. You start as a human survivor. You have to try and, survive in the world either through competing or cooperating with other players. And after playing for a certain amount of time, as long as you don't kill other players for no reason, you can be whitelisted to play a cop, and then you'll be policing the entire area, including other cops as well. So we want to have two types of players, that those that play by the rules and really take the game seriously, and those that are just basically trying to run amok and cause havoc. You'll have to scavenge, you'll have to repair things, you'll have to build bases with your friends, fortify those bases in case like other players come to attack you, for example. But there will also be cyborg cops that are played by other gamers that will be trying to police the entire environment. They'll be keeping everybody in check, making sure that you have the correct licenses. If you have a gun that you don't have a license for, then they'll confiscate it it, and they might throw you in jail, or maybe some kind of like deathmatch arena. So we're going to have a science fiction environment set in a futuristic Earth, hundreds of years in the future after climate change has already kind of destroyed or decimated the world. We're going to have scientific experiments gone wrong that are roaming the environment, malfunctioning robots that are kind of hostile as well, missions to do, including shipping cargo, money shipments, convoys and things like that. So lots of different things to do in this environment, and obviously you'll have to compete with other players or cooperate with them as well.
All right, cool. And where does blockchain come into this?
So the blockchain aspect is to manage the flow of digital tokens and virtual items, ownership of those virtual items. With the blockchain, we can actually assign digital scarcity to items that exist in the game world. So we can mitigate hacking and prevent people from just like giving themselves extra tokens or items that they don't possess. So we believe that by doing that, the items in the game world are going to have a certain value that other players will want to, they'll be willing to pay for. So we're going to run auctions for virtual items in our ICO so that players could outright own certain vehicles in the game. We'll run an auction for maybe a few weeks, and the highest bidder will win the item. And then those players can use those ships, for example, in game. We'll have customizable weapons, customizable characters, and lots of other things. So much the same as CryptoKitties, they're cryptographically scarce. There's only one or maybe a small number of those in existence. So people will have to take care of those items. They're going to have to spend tokens to repair their vehicles, to repair their weapons, because if they eventually stop working or they break, then obviously they could cease to exist.
So there you go, there's a bit of information about Decimated. Like I said, it's very early days on this game, but you can see that a bit of effort's gone into the concept art, a bit of effort's gone into kind of pitching this thing out. I think they're going to do an ICO on this one rather than a Kickstarter or something like that, so they're going to look for some funding at some point down the line. But we'll keep following it, and hopefully we'll get a chat with the developer soon and learn a bit more about how this game is actually going to behave. All right, so on to our third news story for the week, and this is about Untitled. It's about, geez, it seems like every single week now we hear about the next kind of Steam killer. They usually with words like, we're going to revolutionise game distribution, or world's first, or first of its kind. It's a commonly used phrase. This is another one using all those terminology. End title. Look, I'm going to be straight up and say straight away, I'm not a big fan of the name of this one. I know they're going for entitled, as in, are you entitled to this game? But I just don't dig it. I just think it's a bit of a toy kind of way of doing their name, so I hope they have a look at that and maybe rebrand. But anyway, they do have some good stuff going for them. So these guys, like the other places that we've spoken about before, these guys want to have a place where you can distribute your games, where you can kind of get a bit of exposure for your games, where you can kind of get gamers and influencers and the developers all in the one space, kind of making gameplay, love and fun together. Okay, these guys though are using an actual smart terminology for it. They're using the word license token and liquid licensing as a concept. So this makes, I think, a lot more sense to gamers. I think the idea that they are buying a license and that they have the ability to on-sell that license to another player, whether that happens to be a game or an in-game item, I think makes a lot more sense. It's good terminology, it's a smart way to play it. I also like that it's got a very interesting way here of encouraging influencers to get involved with the game. So when you buy these games, you're going to have it's going to actually expose a commission amount for influencers, right? So basically, it will say something along the lines of, oh, here's this game, you can buy it for this much, and if you get a 15% commission on it as if you're an influencer. Now, how they define an influencer from a normal Joe, I do not know, and what a commission means, I think it probably means an affiliate. So that probably means that if you are an influencer and you decide you want to talk about a particular game that's available on a platform, and one of your readers or viewers or watchers or stream followers or whatever decides to go and buy that game, they use your code and you get a 15% cut of the sale of that game, right? So that's pretty cool. So it does two types of things here. First, it basically puts control in the hands of the developer to say, look, how much are we willing to give a slice of the pie to people to go market the game for us? And that allows people who have got an audience to kind of go in and go, hey, I can make this much money if I go in and talk about this particular game, which I'm a really big fan of. And so it encourages them to get involved, but also encourages gamers who are just usually just turning up and playing, but have had thinking about trying to get into it, to maybe actually step up to be an influencer as well, because they've got a monetary reason here now to go do that. So I like that little system. It's a really neat little system. The developer also is allowed or takes full control of being able to define what percentage of the on sale of a game goes to them and what sale goes to the actual owner of the game. So that's kind of puts the power back in the control of the indie developer to say, you know what, I don't mind if you on-sell the game, but we're going to take 20% of that, or we're going to take 10% of that. So it allows this really interesting little, I guess, kind of secondary economy here, where a developer can take some of the pressure out of the remarketing of it, and the pressure about losing anything to kind of people selling off and trading games, and go, you know what, this is what we're willing to lose, this is what we're willing to gain on this particular matter. And so I think we'll probably see a lot of indie developers go in there and go, you know what, I'm just going to go hell for leather on this. I'm going to get people who influencers talk about this game 90% of every single sale, and I'm going to take nothing out of any resales and just try and get a heap of mass interest around something so they can build a brand and get a sequel in line or some DLC or stuff like that. I think that's a very interesting play. It's kind of like not a free-to-play model, but it allows the gamers themselves and influencers or people who are talking about it to have a bit of an investment, a stakehold in the product as well, which is a really neat concept. Now I do have a little bit of a graphic to show you here. This is available on the Entitled website. It's obviously an example of how they see the dashboard working for developers. You can see there NTL is the Entitled token. So obviously you're trading in that kind of cryptocurrency below there, but you can see you've got a manage and a sell option on both sides there. It says developer dashboard, so I guess it's not the front facing one for actual consumers, but you can see the type of, you know, got some pretty high-end games there, pretty old games really too. Doom 2, that's been around for just a little while. Full Throttle's been around for just as long, but anyway, so they can kind of see how a developer's going to approach this. I don't know what an Entitled is worth at this, an Entitled token is worth at this point, so I don't know what 20 NTLs mean. It better not be $20 because you're not paying that for Doom 2 this far down the track. Anyway, I do have a little bit of doubt with this. Like I was saying at the start of this little news segment, you know, it's hard to get enthused about these things because we're just hearing about too many of them. I just kind of want somebody to win this battle already and just kind of, you know, make it so that they are the Steam alternative, as opposed to seeing one every single week come out and try and tell me they're the first doing it and revolutionising it. So who's going to be that? Oh, geez, who's going to be? Maybe we should do a list. Maybe we'll do a list on this show and we'll go through and we'll list who everyone who's trying to do it and do our pick for who should be number one. That's a great little project. We'll do that next time around. But you know who it could end up being? It could end up being Ubiplay. They could be the ones that try and knock down Steam. Which brings us to news story number 4. Why am I talking about Ubisoft? Okay, now Ubisoft are big on the blockchain. We have talked about them before on this show, but their kind of list of things that they're doing around blockchain tech is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I'll list some of them for you now, right? They were the first of the major developers to announce they had an internal team called the Ubisoft, the Strategic Innovation Lab, that's the name for it, actually working on blockchain tech and how it can be integrated into their games. We know that they're working with Microsoft. I've spoken about that before. They've integrated Microsoft's Azure cloud-based blockchain royalty payment system. They're the only third party to be kind of involved in that so far. We know Microsoft's doing their royalty payments on the blockchain now to all the developers that sell their games through Xbox Live. Ubisoft is also using that same technology now as well, so they're involved with that. They have been at blockchain gaming conferences, doing speeches, doing talks. They recently hosted a blockchain hackathon where Eves himself, the man, was there to judge it. So like they're really kind of like going all in on blockchain. They're the first of the majors to really kind of show a dedicated interest consistently week on week in what blockchain can do. They're big believers in it, trust me, from everything I've seen, they really believe in it. Now the next thing that they've done is they've started an incubator program for blockchain developers. So Everdreamsoft, the developer, has just been brought onto the Ubisoft Startup Program. That Startup Program will give them 5 months of tutelage under the Ubisoft wing. They'll get workshops, mentors, experts working with them on their products. Now, Everdreamsoft is a developer who has a bit of a place of royalty in the blockchain gaming space. They released Spells of Genesis back in April 2017, one of the first blockchain-based games. It was kind of an interesting kind of hybrid title. It was a part card collecting game where you kind of built a deck out of all these cards, but also had this kind of arcade shooting mechanic where you kind of we're aiming and shooting through kind of obstacle-filled mazes to try and use the power of your cards to take down enemies. I have played Spells of Genesis. It's actually kind of quite a bit of fun, even though it's a free-to-play mobile title. And you know, free-to-play mobile titles have a threshold of awesome that's not as high as what we're used to in the AAA space. But it was a fun game. It was a fun mechanic. So Spells of Genesis was their big thing. They also did Bit Crystals, so they started their own type of platform for kind of distributing games and blockchain tech that they use. They have Bit Crystals is also the cryptocurrency they have kind of running in the background. They've also got their own wallets that they've been working on. Book of Orbs is one that you might have heard of. So they've been quite busy in the space. The next game is called A Table. It's probably pronounced A Table or something like that, but it means kind of at the table. It's kind of a crypto kitty style thing. Instead of kitties, you've got these things called yummies, creatures made out of food that you can kind of breed together and make new food created beast thingos. Kind of typical of that type of experience where you're kind of trying to create unique monster creature things that you can then on-sell and have a value and a rare and so forth. We've got no gameplay of that, unfortunately. We only know it exists and that it's an Ethereum-based blockchain game. Now, the timing of this is quite interesting. Obviously, we've got this game that they're working on in the background. We've got all this other tech that they're working on. So is this relationship, is this Ubisoft startup program about actually game development, or is it more about how to market these types of games? And are they going to be relying on the Ubisoft workshops to kind of work out how to best position games in the market, get branding around things? You know, like Ubisoft's really good at it. They've got the Tom Clancy range, they've got Rayman, Assassin's Creed. They've built a massive range of franchises that do really, really well. So maybe it's just about that type of information more than it is about working out how these games should actually play. But also, it's a bit of a win-win here because Ubisoft, as we said, is pushing really, really big into this space, and they're going to be able to learn something, I'm sure, of the first developer to really be experimenting in the blockchain gaming space. So there's a bit of a win-win there. If we see information going both ways, Everdreamsoft, I'm sure, may end up being acquired by Ubisoft if this thing goes well and they like the look of A Table. Okay, so we do have a bit of footage of Spells of Genesis, the game I was talking about, the very first game by these guys, just in case you didn't know what I was talking about. Take a look at this. This is Spells of Genesis by Everdreamsoft, and they have just joined the Ubisoft startup program. Watch. So that is Ubisoft's big partnership with Everdreamsoft. Well, not a partnership, but they've got them under their wing now. We're going to keep talking about Ubisoft now for our 5th news story of the week. Ubisoft have kind of secretly announced a secret little game. They're working on a game prototype called Hashcraft. Right now, Hashcraft has been done by the Strategic Innovation Lab. They're the guys that I was talking about in that last news piece. And it's kind of where Ubisoft, it's the first kind of, publicly revealed showcase of the type of things that Ubisoft is exploring with what they can do with blockchain technology. It was shown off at a recent conference, and at the end of this we're going to show you how that presentation went, so you can see for yourself what it's all about. Now what I've discerned from this kind of from this footage of where they're going with this thing is what they have created is this idea of creating a randomly generated island, and on this island you kind of can set up various challenges for other players to do, and then you share those challenges, you share that island to the greater world, and players can, either your friends or millions of people around the world, however big you want it to let it go, can come to your island and can try and complete in the challenges that you've set. Now, when you go to publish this thing, it kind of creates, from what I understand, a little independent blockchain. So your island will have its own little independent blockchain, its own little universe, and within that you'll be able to kind of, I guess, monitor the way that people progress through the various challenges, and whether there's any sort of in-game items or anything like that, it still remains to be seen. there'll be some of your computational power in Hashcraft to be used to kind of uphold the blockchain. So it's going to be a decentralized experience Ubisoft's going for. They don't want to run it off the Ubisoft servers. They don't want to run it off Ubi players. It's going to be run by the players. So some of your computational power will be used to do that and confirm that the transactions. He spoke briefly about transactions, but I think he was also more speaking about the in-game generated content. That's what it's about. So confirming that content has been created and confirming who owns that content seems to be what this blockchain is going to be most focused on. When I looked at that kind of stuff, the two questions that came to my mind is it's not clear if other players will, because he suggests in this video that you will earn a bit of the crypto from creating this island and publishing it, but it's not kind of clear whether or not players will then have to pay you something to come onto your island to actually see it, or whether you can kind of set monetary rewards for the challenges you have in the game. So can you say, oh look, first person to run up the mountain back down the bottom again gets this many money or not? Can you set up those little smart contracts within your little individual island blockchain experience or not? That wasn't clear. For how it looks, it's got this interesting, like you can kind of see it in the image there. It's interesting, like you come in Fortnite style and you kind of glide into this island that you've just randomly created, and when you get on the ground, it starts to look a bit No Man's Sky-like. Very bright colours, lots of kind of different coloured rocks and flora and stuff like that. I didn't see any animals moving around, so I don't know if there's any sort of life forms on this or any other enemies to fight. So one of my big questions, but obviously it's just a prototype, it's early days. The character looks like a kind of a small cartoony character, moves very, very fast, but again, may not have been balanced yet. It's obviously just for show, just to show what you can actually do with this stuff. And it's not clear how much you can actually customize. So my big questions when I saw kind of the footage were, can you bring stuff into this world? So can we take, I guess, seeing some other Ubisoft games into this world, other things that might be stored in a blockchain, stuff you bought off Opskins or Wax or whatever, can you bring those kind of elements in? Can you create things outside the world and bring them in? Is it full Minecraft style here, crafting? Obviously there's Hashcraft Minecraft here, so there's obviously some sort of play there. Like I said, can there be enemies? Can you do big buildings? Can you terraform the land? Like, so how much control do you have there? Can you turn mountains into swamps? Can you build mazes? Can you do the bloody Enterprise if you want to and send people up to the bridge to try and fight some Klingons? I don't know. And on top of all of this, there's the interesting Hashcraft Minecraft link here. Obviously, two very similar game experiences, and the names obviously there's a bit of a hijack there. Cryptojack is the word we probably should use. And as we know, Microsoft has been super focused on blockchain. We've had a lot of stuff here in the last couple of episodes about what Microsoft's doing. Microsoft owns Minecraft, so Microsoft no doubt saw this and thought, that's interesting. So is this something we might see if there's a bit of a interest in this title in Hashcraft and what it's trying to attempt, or if Ubisoft makes some genuine progress with it, will Minecraft go, hey, maybe we should have a get on this as well, maybe we should try our luck with this type of thing. So there's a bit of interesting stuff there. Now, like I said, we're going to leave you with some of the conference footage so you can have a look for yourself. This was recorded at a conference, so be mindful of the fact that the audio is not that great, but you can learn a bit more about the game. That is also the end of our show for this week. I really appreciate you guys joining us on Video Games and the Blockchain. It's always great to talk gaming and blockchain with you guys. And we will be back again next week with another huge show. I don't know if Brody's back next week. Don't know. We'll find out. But just for now, enjoy this little look at the very first ever worldwide reveal of Hashcraft, a little secret Ubisoft game. Thanks for being us.
Creates Hashcraft, a game that runs on a blockchain. John creates islands where he can host challenges for other players. He can also explore and play on the islands that others have created. How does Hashcraft work? Connect to the game, choose a number, press enter, and bam, your machine procedurally generates a unique island. Set up challenges for other players. Don't forget to plant your flag. Press publish to share your island on the blockchain. To reward you for your creation, you earn a token that gives you access to bonuses. Other players can now enjoy your challenges. And if you want, you can also create a new blockchain hosting a completely new universe. Who do you want to share your new world with? Just a few friends? Or millions of players? Because you operate the world, it is now your call. With Hashcraft, Ubisoft empowers you, the player, to become the stakeholder of your experience.
So it's not a product. It will not. Maybe it will never be a game. It's a prototype, and the makers, the prototyping team, really try to understand how blockchain could be the good technology, to make the player feels like they are stakeholders of the game. And what here is it to be a stakeholder? What it is? The idea is that we have to find the way players are adding value to the game they play, and they, in a way, players help us to make the game better. And here we found two value proposition from the player. The first one is that they use, as you see in the video, they use the computing power to run a procedurally generated algorithm, and the result of this computing is stored in the blockchain, so that other players don't have to run the algorithm again. And the second thing is that the player can create challenges. It's user-generated content, and this content is shared with other players and is stored also on the blockchain. So here, the idea is that we can do this game without using any servers. The blockchain is storing the online elements of the game, and is shared by the players. So, of course, we also discovered a lot of constraints here. We can't do real time. We have to find a way to store really few data in the blockchain, and we did. There were actually, for each island created, you have less than 10 KO that are stored on the blockchain. But we also discovered that, as many people said before me, we also discovered that for the player, there is no real consciousness that it is running on a blockchain. So maybe here the real value proposition is more on a community level. The community can decide to keep the game running forever without the editor working on it. And yes, I think that is a true value for the players, but for the community, not really in the experience, in the feeling.